Amazing. Thank you, Amris, and thank you, judges, for your questions. Our second finalist for this prize is Senior Tinashe Manguwa. His speech is titled Darkness Visible. Welcome, Tinashe.
Is this thing on? We're feeling good? All right? Yeah, that's about to change. All right. Who's timing? Okay. Tell me when to go. Why do soldiers fire bullets, May? Why do they follow orders? Why do they submit themselves to training from total strangers? Why, come to that, are they willing to put their lives on the line and fight with every sinew to murder other soldiers whom they've also never met? Because they were told a story. An army is a story. It is, absolutely. It's not a person or a place or an element on the periodic table. It has no objective reality in the world. Armies are composed of individuals who cooperate because they share a story about what they're doing and why they're doing it. A war is a story. A nation is a story. Stories are the root of all human cooperation, for good or ill, which is why we enjoy telling stories. We enjoy listening to them. This is why powerful stories have a way of spreading. And the faster a story spreads, the more dangerous it can be. Thank you for that, Samantha, by the way. Storytelling. I first heard this monologue from a piece of theater called A Mirror by the playwright Sam Holcroft. And I've been haunted by it since. I've been haunted because I've come to think about the ways in which stories come alive in our various societies. And as I've been ruminating on all of these different things, I find that in the last year, I've been taken by the story of biopolitics. For the Italian scholar Giorgio Agamben, power controls the life and death of individual biological bodies, and none of us are immune. I'd like us to consider what Agamben means by this in determining what makes it okay to kill some people and to spare others. Essentially, how sovereignty dictates who gets to live and who doesn't. Before continuing, I'd like to thank Professors Todd Franklin for conversations on critical consciousness and Bryson Tedford for help with the Germans. Political theorist Hannah Arendt sharply observes, "So einer Gruppe zu gehören ist erst einmal natürliche Gegebenheit." To belong to a group in the first place is a natural condition. Sie gehören zu irgendeiner Gruppe durch Geburt. You belong to a group by birth, always. Yet this belonging has with it layered implications. By belonging to these groups, Agamben argues that we're immediately politicized. That is, we're liable to whatever laws are now levied upon us. Agamben warns, however, of a life outside of any political relation to us, that is, the homo sacer. The homo sacer on Agamben's account is the individual who we include by excluding. Imagine Hamilton goes to war with Williams. Say you refuse to fight. But your no is insignificant until Hamilton says no, because your affiliation with this place carries an implication. That means you now represent that which Williams now despises. And so there's tension there, because sovereignty protects life, but it now defines who is expendable. We've become so well-versed in preaching this gospel of human rights and equality amongst other lies we tell ourselves, but when pressed, we have noticed that we tend to abandon universal ideals, and we tend to stick with those that are in the same system, in the same class that we're in. And so for Agamben, we have been cornered to place our life based on this sovereign power because we despise getting excluded. We no longer have the inclusion that comes with the supposed safety of a sovereign state, be that through legal protection or medical care or even the right to live. Call a rose a skunk, and if you believe it deeply enough, you might treat it as one. And therein the danger lies. The faster a story spreads, the more dangerous it can be. Yet there's something quite mortifying about this. States don't kill people, the people of the state do. Sovereignty does not function on its own. It works through the willing hands of individuals. Armies are composed of individuals who cooperate because they share a story about what they're doing and why they're doing it. Germany, 1942. Soweto, 1976. New York, 2001. And most recently, in Ordinary Men, the historian Christopher Browning, referencing Erwin Staub's psychological work, grounds his thesis in the idea that evil arises out of what is deemed to be workaday. noting that evil acts that arise out of ordinary thinking and are committed by ordinary people is the norm, not the exception. Let us now imagine that there exists something such that we refer to that thing as evil. On Browning's account, those who transgress, that is, engage in evil, are not just someplace tucked away in their lair, plotting on who to wipe out next. They're right next to us, in our classes, on the jitney, in public speaking competitions. Think community murals getting vandalized overnight, or you're doing your weekly grocery shop at Target and someone decides to take it too literally. Would you view your neighbor differently if you knew that they would one day take a life? What if that person were you? Remember the Machiavellian proposition, for men injure either from fear or hatred. Fear or hatred. What are you most afraid of that will cause you to do the unimaginable? However, let us no longer just imagine that evil exists in this theoretical realm. Let us surmise that it is alive within our various states. The question of whether evil or whether killing falls under the bracket of evil seems rhetorical, but one is pressed to wonder whether we're varying understandings of what evil is. If Agamben is correct, evil only exists within the state that has a justice system, that is, the sovereign state. Once we have placed individuals outside of that system and they become the homo sacer, Agamben says we create what's known as a state of exception, where we can kill them, but our killing is not murder as we've devalued their existence. An army is a story, remember? Because any of us can be the homo sacer, we never know what is going to occur. For Agamben, we belong to these systems, we belong to these groups. These can be as personal as parliament or as political as marriage, but none of us are immune. Therefore, the conflict finds us where we are. The war finds you where you are. A war is a story, and some of us are written in as collateral. A quick note on public speaking. Amy Gaffney, wherever you are, thank you. In your own quirky way, you have changed my life. This was a hard speech for me to write because two of my friends recently lost loved ones due to conflicts in their respective countries. And I can't help but paraphrase Rilke, the Austrian poet. Surely all courage is a result of one's having been in danger, of having gone all the way to the end, where one can go no further. This speech is for their courage. Until we rewrite the tales that allow states to bend what just is, sovereign systems will remain thoroughly flawed, they'll remain fragile. And so it is up to us to be cognizant of the ways we tell stories, of the ways we receive these stories and what we do with them, because they have implications on real lives. Until then, perhaps until then, we all remain daughters of dust and sons of soil. Darkness visible. Yeah, I was thinking about it because we're speaking about love earlier and the environment and storytelling. I thought to myself, let's talk about death. That's going to be amazing. And the silence is not surprising, for sure, but thank you so much for listening. Quirky, yes, that was the word I see. For sure. I was thinking about, thank you. Did everyone hear the question? Or should I yell it out? Okay, we're all good. I was thinking about Courtney Gibbons. Are we familiar with Courtney Gibbons? Math professor, love her very much. She was one of the federal employees who was laid off a few weeks ago. And when I was thinking through this concept of the homo sacer, I was thinking of, well, it has this almost explicit us versus them system in it, but I think there's an implicit us versus us thing happening here, where sovereign states essentially say, we know better than you, so we're going to dictate what it is you're able to do and how you get to do that. And so your question was about stories, that is, them being told and them being received. But I also think about volume. I think volume matters very much because I think we're all storytellers in here. I think that, and I believe that truly. But then, because the systems that we're part of are flawed, one of the things that I've observed is that some voices tend to be overlooked. And so that to me, I think, is the bigger underlying thing rather than the telling and the receiving. Because those two things are different, but they're also core principles for communication. Someone spoke about communication earlier, one of your speeches. Okay, they're not gonna raise their hand. It's fine, I thought we're friends. And so in thinking about telling and thinking about receiving, I also think about voice, and I also think about volume. But I've also had some great mentors along the way, Oral Communication Center. Yeah, they're okay. No, great. You still owe me a paycheck, it's okay. I'll be good. Oh, yes.
So if stories can make the difference between life and death, should we be censoring certain stories to protect people?
That's a brilliant question. Here's the thing about Russell Marcus. When you ask your question, he's not really asking you the question. So the thing that's going on in my mind right now is what's he actually asking? Because he's going to hound me. Ever since he got my email, it's been interesting. I'm not stalling, I actually have an answer to this. The play I referenced earlier, A Mirror, is on censorship, funny enough. So it talks about the censorship of storytelling. Gorgeous piece of theater. I absolutely love it. And so one of the characters, there's actually a Ministry of Culture in the play, which is absolutely interesting because they censor stories and texts. So one of the characters, Adam, is a budding playwright, but then the Minister of Culture doesn't like whatever his output is, which is interesting because Adam is writing real stories. Real stories for him are the conversations he overhears, which is interesting because he's here standing by his wall, listening in on the neighbors, and like, I've got a script now. I'm gonna give it to the minister tomorrow. No, that went horribly. So censorship is not the way to go. Also, I think civil discourse is something that we started on today. I think any good conversation, any good hub for storytelling should invite multiple perspectives. That is, we can disagree. Our intuitions might be different, right, based on something. But I think, coming back to this idea of voice, each voice should still be given a platform. Stories. Public speaking is a story.